Welcome to the ninth grade experience. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. As a teacher of freshmen and one of our freshman mentor committee faculty advisors, I spend a lot of my school day thinking about and helping students with the successful transition from middle school to the halls of Emmaus High School. The goal of this podcast is to give you the story of the ninth grade here at Emmaus High School through the people who live it daily, the students and staff. We will attempt to touch on the real issues and stories that ninth grade students face, ranging from academics to athletics, technical school, and just trying to find your way as one person in a community of approximately 2,700 students. We will also look to speak with some of the influential staff members who play a key part in a student's ninth grade year. It is the hope that future ninth grade students and their families can use the tips and insights provided here to begin making connections to their potential new school and learn more about the day-to-day lives of the students that they will one day become and realize from day one that ninth grade counts. You can learn more about this episode and all of the episodes of the ninth grade experience by following us on Twitter at EHSFMC or at Chris Stutchko, or following the hashtag EHS9counts, or our website, sites.google.com/eastpennsd.org/ninth grade experience. Before we jump into today's topic, let's thank our sponsor for this show, the East Penn Education Foundation. This podcast has been made possible through a $1,000 grant awarded to teachers like me each year who are attempting to do unique projects in the area of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The foundation supports programs that put learning in motion by giving students the tools they need to think actively in a complex and changing world. You can follow them on Facebook at EPSD Education Foundation, on Twitter at EPSD EdFound, or on Instagram at EPSD Ed Foundation. Now on to the show. In the world of high school athletics, and even on previous episodes of this podcast, most of the attention is placed on the results of the varsity teams. But before the Friday Night Lights, local television, newspaper and radio coverage, and league and district championships, many athletes improve their skills on junior varsity or freshman teams. In perennially strong programs like boys basketball, making any of the three teams is quite the accomplishment for a ninth grader. If the success of this season's freshman boys basketball team is any indication of future fortunes, the Hornets hoop program will be in great shape. The boys went 20-1 during the regular season and won a season-ending tournament, while outscoring teams over the course of the year by an average of 28 points per game. In this episode, we catch up with three members of the team, Chase Muckey, Dylan Darville, and Daniel Charlot, who spoke about the process of coming together as a team, the sacrifices of individual players for team success, and the adjustment to competitive high school basketball. So it's time to run the three-man weave as we go strong to the hoop with Chase, Dylan, and Daniel. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning into this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. We have three members from the freshman boys basketball team here with us today to talk about their awesome season that they had this year and kind of give you a little bit different perspective of an athlete here at Emmaus High School. We've done a lot of prior episodes about freshmen making varsity teams, but we haven't focused on a freshman team yet here at the high school. So we're going to focus on that today, kind of find out about their experience, what it was like transitioning from middle school basketball to high school basketball, and just learning a little bit about their season. So guys, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we have three players from the team here today. So we'll go around. We'll let them introduce them. I'll introduce them, and then they can say hi or whatever they want to say. So we have one of the co-captains of the team, Chase Muckey.
Hi.
Yep, that's the point where you say hi into the microphone. And then we have another co-captain, Dylan Darville.
Hi.
And then we have Daniel Charlot.
Hi.
Hi. I was telling him before we started recording, his name just rolls off the tongue. It sounds like he's going to be a future star somewhere. So, Daniel, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us today. So we asked the same question to everybody who comes in for the first question, and it's describe your ninth grade experience. So you had a very successful season as a team. You're now halfway through the year of your freshman year. So what has your ninth grade experience been like? And anyone can go first, and we'll just kind of go around.
Like the whole year, just basketball?
Sure, it could be the whole year. It could be about basketball. Whatever you want to talk about or highlight.
I mean, for me, like, transitioning wasn't that hard for me because I knew a lot of people, and, like, my brother was here, so he told me a lot of things that I should know. So it was pretty easy for me.
Did your brother give you any sort of bad information or information that wasn't necessarily true?
No, not really.
No, he was pretty honest about everything. Well, that's always good. The honesty, yeah. I've talked to some people in here that said that they maybe didn't get the most honest information from an older brother or sister, so that's kind of good that you kind of got that. So pretty easy transition for you there. How about for you guys? What was the transition like coming up here, or about the basketball season?
It was pretty simple since I had an older sister that can show me around the school and tell me what's going on.
Okay, so do you have an older sibling here, Chase? Did you have anybody here? No, so you're the lone guy of the group here that didn't have anybody to kind of tell you what was going on. So what was your transition like coming up to the high school?
Well, I had some friends that were upperclassmen, but it wasn't that hard. It was just the first couple of days finding my classes, and then other like that, it was just a breeze.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about on the show is how that you come up from the middle school and you have to transition to being a high schooler and being a high school athlete. So what was it like, that transition when you were in middle school, and you can even say what middle school you were at? Like, what was that transition coming up? Obviously you play and you practice all the time at the middle school level, but what was that transition like coming from the middle school to the high school level, and especially in a competitive sport like basketball where there's probably like 30, 40, I would say 40 guys that tried out for the team, and you all made it, and you stuck it out all season. So what was that transition like for you coming up from middle school to the high school?
I mean, I thought it was, like, pretty similar because in middle school you just practice right after school. Same thing, go in the locker room, change, and then practice. The only change that I noticed really was just practice was more serious.
Okay, so that more seriousness, and like when you guys practice, was it always just with you, or did you have any like practice with like JV or varsity? Like, did you ever have mixed practices?
Well,
like
we
that?
practice alone, but we scrimmaged JV a couple times, but that's about it.
Okay. And how about for the rest of you? What was that transition like coming up from middle school to high school, basketball related, like kind of having to up your game a little bit or like get more serious about stuff? Or
It was pretty much the same. There was mostly the same players there that I've seen, but as Dylan said, practice was more serious. There was a lot more running involved too.
Okay, so a lot more running. So were you ready for how much more physically demanding it was going to be?
Yeah.
So you were ready.
Yeah.
Was anyone else, were the rest of you guys like ready for that step up in the transition coming from middle? So you guys were all ready, figured out like if you wanted to make the freshman team here or either any of the other teams as well too, you kind of had to up your game a little bit in the training and all the other stuff there. Yeah. So in looking at, and just so Mr. Luckenbill, who's one of our social studies teachers here at the high school, is your head coach. Mr. D'Agostino, who's a wellness and fitness teacher, is one of your assistant coaches. So we have, people in the building that are your coach. Do any of you have those guys for a class at all?
No, but I see Coach Luck a lot.
Yeah, so what is it like for you guys having like your coach in the building? If you had a problem, because one of the things that Coach said about your entire team, which he was really proud of, was that there were no grade issues, no one was in trouble, no one close to the failure report, all this different thing, which is awesome for a team of freshmen, because freshmen usually are kind of trying to figure out like academics, and every once in a while they may get themselves into a little trouble too, but like you guys were kind of that's one of the things he was most proud of, and kind of having a conversation with him was like that there were no problems or anything like that. So what was it like having Coach Luckenbill in the building and kind of like a resource for you as you were transitioning here to the high school?
I mean, yeah, it was nice. It was useful. Like if we ever had a problem, we could just go into his room, or if we need anything, we can just go talk to him. And like for example, one day the gym locker room was closed, so I just put my gym bag in his room.
Yeah, and that sounds really simple, but just having a special, like a different spot to be able to put things, or like a check-in in the building, is kind of unique. Now at the middle school level, depending on which middle school you were at, I don't think the middle school coaches were in your building, right?
Ours was at
yeah.
LMS.
Yeah,
This
Mark
is-
isn't, though.
Okay, so the LMS coach was there, but Iyer was not because Mr.
Yeah.
Moxie teaches here, so he wasn't there. So that's kind of a unique thing to be able to have that coach in the building. So what was it like? Did Mr. Luckenbill and Mr. DiAugustino give you guys advice on like transitioning to the high school here, like just how to be a freshman student and a freshman basketball player, and kind of teach you guys like quote unquote the Emmaus way to play basketball and kind of be a good student and all that stuff? What was that like to have somebody like that to kind of help you transition up?
I mean, like, he didn't really give us, like, any tips, I'd say, but he just told us to, like, stay organized and, like, get on top of homework early.
And that's something that a lot of the athletes that have come in have all talked about, that need to stay focused, especially with homework and extracurriculars, because you guys, you have to travel to the games. You're always the first game, right? So if the varsity plays at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, what time do you guys play?
Yeah, 4.
So 4 o'clock. So the freshman boys are the first ones on the court. Probably usually the stands are filled, right?
No.
No, they're not, and that's okay. Honestly, being honest. So sometimes you guys left school a little early too, right? To go to like in the Poconos and some of the other spots. So what is that like? So you go to the game. Do you have to stick around for the JV and the varsity game?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, so you guys didn't have to. So if you had a way back, you could, you didn't have to stick around. But what was that like when you guys had to play the first game and kind of, what was that experience like having to do that and then kind of getting yourself back, to do schoolwork or to kind of just adjust back to, your normal life there, kind of having to do that?
Well, I liked our early games because we set the tone for the rest of the teams, and then coming back, it wasn't that tough because we were an early game. We would get home with a lot of time left to do other schoolwork and things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I liked it.
So setting the tone, that's one thing you guys definitely did do this year. So you guys were super successful. You were 20-1 during the regular season, and you won your end of the year tournament at Spooky Nook, going 5-0. So you won the, I don't know what they call it, the junior high freshman basketball championship of Pennsylvania. I don't know. I know I've seen it advertised as that, so I don't know if you get a banner or a plaque or a championship ring or maybe a T-shirt. I don't know what you get for that, but that's an awesome accomplishment for you guys. So talk a little bit about your team. I have some stats here, but I want to hear from you guys first about like coming together as a team, 20-1, 25-1. Like that's some good players right there. A lot of good things going on. So what was that like, kind of coming together as a team from the different middle schools? You even had a couple 8th grade guys playing on your team that weren't here at the high school. So what was that experience like, just kind of coming together as a team and with that much talent on it?
I mean, like, for me, I came from Iyer, and majority of our team's from LMS. So, like, it took a couple games to, like, get comfortable with them on the court, but it was pretty easy. Like, there's a lot of unselfish guys on the team, so.
Yeah, a lot of our players have a lot of talent, but they're also like selfless. Like they would put like another teammate in front of themselves for the team's success.
We had a lot of skills to bring to the table, so if some of us would get into foul trouble, we didn't really have to worry about it since our team is so deep. We could just bring a person off the bench and still be all right.
And that was something that Coach Luckenbill said in his email, is that you guys had, so I'll give you some of the stats now. So you had over 6 players that scored over 100 points for the season, which is pretty good. You averaged more steals and assists than turnovers. So that's another one of those pretty great stats. And then he definitely pointed out, saying that that there was a lot of people that had to give some stuff up. Like maybe if you were playing on a team with not as many good players, you might have had some guys that could have averaged double figures or, taken more shots. But and just listening to you guys, it seemed like everyone's kind of found their role. So what is that like? I know, I coach my son's 6th grade basketball team, and I've coached some other basketball teams and played basketball. But when you kind of find that team mentality, when you get it really works well, but it can be destroyed pretty easily. So what was it like did you know right away that you were going to be able to get it together as a team, or was there like a game or an event that kind of was like, all right, we're good to go now, and like we kind of everyone knows what they're doing? Was there something during the season you remember as like when you thought like, man, this could be something that we could like maybe go undefeated, maybe only lose one game? Like, was there something during the season you thought about that?
I think, like, for me, when I noticed that, like, we were blending well together I think it was one of our early games against Parkland, and they were supposed to be the best team. And we beat them by, like, 20 points. And, like, everybody was just happy for each other, and we were playing together, and, like, everything was clicking. And I think that's when I noticed that it was going to be a great season.
Yeah, and I'm seeing here that you won every game that you won by over 10 points except one, which I guess this was the second Parkland game. Yeah. You won 58-50, but every other game you won by over 10 points. Do you know, I'll play a little trivia. Do you know how many points per game you guys averaged?
I think it was like a little bit above
65.
64, very good. You were close. How many points per game did you let up?
In the 30s.
In the 30s. So it was 64 points per game and allowed 36. So for our math people out there, that's 28. So that's a 28-point differential per game. That is like historic numbers. If you did that in like college or the NBA, you would be like the greatest team of all time. So I actually asked Coach Luckenbill, like, in terms of like historical like best freshman teams, like, and he didn't give me a straight answer, obviously, because he's not going to talk bad about any other team that he's had. But that's like a huge accomplishment to outscore teams by an average of 28 points a game. So what was that like for you guys to like know that, like, hey, when we walk into the gym here, not only are we going to probably win, but we have the chance to just blow teams out?
Yeah.
So what was that like? What was that like in preparation for games, or like was the practices probably the more competitive of what you guys were doing? Yeah, and that's usually, you hear that a lot from like really good teams. It's like the practice, like they always talk about the 1992 Olympic Dream Team, you know, the first time when they had all those pro guys playing, and it was like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and all those guys, and they talk about how the practices were actually the hardest part. They were beating teams by like 60 and 70 points. Not that you guys were doing that, but they said those practices were tough. So what were the practices like when you had all your guys together? Like what was the intensity level of practice like?
I mean, like, we all want to succeed, and we all want to push each other to get better, so like everybody was just playing as hard as they can, and that was probably the most fun part about the season. I'd say, is practice.
So was there like one game or one event like during the course of the season that you look back and it's like, wow, that was, I know you talked about the Parkland game where you guys beat them by 20 points, and that was kind of like the aha moment, but was there like something that also like stood out as like a highlight of the season, or something that, you know, maybe you weren't necessarily anticipating happening and it did happen?
Maybe the second Central game when we were up like 21-0 in the first quarter, and it was because that's our rival, so it was nice to see how excited our coach was, but we did end up blowing that a little bit. We still won by a lot.
And so 21-0, like, again, like the numbers we're talking, if you don't know like high school basketball, like 21-0 in a quarter, that is like, that's pretty impressive, jumping out on top of a team. Like, it's not something that happens all the time. So that is a pretty impressive start to a game. Anyone else have a highlight of the season or something that you remember? Or
I think it was the Whitehall game where the first time we played them, we really took it to them. And then the last game of the season against Whitehall, we were really, I think we thought that we could already beat them, but they were more focused and they wanted it more, but in the end we still beat them.
Okay. So I know that in the past there have been like a tradition, like the player of the game, or whoever Coach Luckenbill kind of points out is like, I know in the years past when Coach Hodoreski was the freshman coach, they did like like kids wore different helmets or something. Did you guys have some sort of like team tradition, team thing that you guys did this year?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was a bell.
Yeah, we rang a bell. He picked two kids to ring a bell.
So sort of like he stole that from the Sixers.
Yeah.
So if you don't know Mr. Luckenbill, he's a huge Sixers fan, so I know that. So he kind of, I guess he's doing the same thing. So the quote unquote players of the game got to ring the bell at the end. And was there like a friendly competition amongst players to ring the bell? Was it something that you guys ever talked about, or was it just kind of something like, I'm going to ring the bell, or how did that work out?
I mean, not really. We never really talked about it.
Yeah, it was never really a competition between us or anything.
So it was just one of those. It was just one of those things that kind of like people did, and just the honor at the end of the game. So was there anyone that like got to like ring the bell over and over again?
Definitely all of us, but our starters and our 6th and 7th man coming off the bench.
Okay.
We all just blowed stuff up in the game.
So you guys had an awesome season. So what's next for you guys? So like just for you three individually, like I know there's usually like, are you guys playing like AAU basketball? I know some of you are any spring athletes here at the high school?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing baseball this spring, but like in the spring and the summer, I'm also probably gonna play some basketball.
And for the other guys, do you play in the spring, or do you kind of take a little time off? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
I might play volleyball, but I also do play AAU basketball in the spring.
Oh, okay, so volleyball. So that our men's or our boys team here is pretty good at volleyball. And if I remember last year, after the boys were eliminated, it was Zach Sable and Mark Swedberg and some of the other varsity guys all played volleyball as well too. So I don't know. They must have had fun with that. I think Zach played like one game, and then they kind of stopped him from doing that because he was going off to East Stroudsburg. So it seems like a natural thing, basketball, volleyball. Did you play in the middle school at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you did play. So just out of curiosity, so what was that like at the middle school playing volleyball? My son, who's in 6th grade, I tried to get him to play volleyball, but he didn't want to play. So what was your volleyball experience like?
It was good. I just tried out for the fun of it. I didn't really have any expectations of making the team.
Okay.
But in the end, I made it, and I really had fun and made some new friends.
Cool. And then how about for you, Chase?
In the spring, I'm still deciding if I want to do AAU or not, but then when the summer comes around, there's a summer league that Emmaus does.
Okay. So you guys are all, like, I would assume you're all going to continue on with basketball. You're going to try out next year for JV and then see whatever happens. Am I right to assume that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go through real quick here as we kind of wind down. I thank you guys for coming. I'm just going to highlight all the players on the team, highlight the managers. If there's anything that you guys want to add in about any of these guys as we kind of go through, feel free to add it in. But I just want to make sure that everyone on the team is getting their due here, even though we have our 3 guys that are here. So some of the other players that were on the team were Jeremy Coe, Jordan Naylor, Michael Whitland, Jackson Lake, Nathan Souter, Dominic Nunez, Will Barber, Nick Steven, and David Friday. The managers of the team were Sean Laird and Tyler Shotwell. We talked about Coach Luckenbill. We talked about Coach DiAugustino. Do you have a funny school-appropriate story about any of the other guys on the team, or things that they did this year, or things that you think they would like you to highlight? Everyone is very quiet. They're all looking at each other. They are all trying to figure out what a school-appropriate story is.
I don't know about like anything specific, but we're all like friends with each other, so we all just like have fun with each other, like on the bus and
I don't know if
stuff.
they want us to tell the stories on here.
It's really funny. You guys have been kind of quiet, kind of reserved, and then that question comes up, and all 3 of you have looked at each other and laughed the entire time. So I'm going to assume there are lots of good stories, but just not appropriate for our podcast here. So as we kind of wind down here, just wanted to thank you guys for coming in. As we're trying to do here on the podcast, we try to highlight the great things that freshmen are doing, and you guys have, really, in a year that's been all up and down here for the basketball program, you guys have really kind of given some hope to the future here as we kind of move forward. So thanks a lot for coming in, and good luck in the future, in the summer, and your spring sports and all the other stuff. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.